Hello everyone, I hope you are having a great Friday evening. I'm excited to be talking to you all about Greenstein vs. Greif Company. My video is a bit differently today. I have this face recording and I'll be flipping back and forth between the PowerPoint. I'm going to do it a little more chill and impromptu as well and have a casual conversation about this case. To introduce this case, the appellant and the plaintiff is Stephen Greenstein, a producer, and the defendant is the Greif Company and A&E Television Networks. This case was tried in the Court of Appeals of California in the 2nd Appellate District, Division 7. It was also tried on May 23, 2007 in the Superior Court. This is Greenstein vs. Greif Company 2007, same plaintiff, same defendant. Essentially, the plaintiff and appellant was a segment producer from Gene Simmons' TV show Family Jewels. He claimed his brief appearance as himself on the show lacked consent and he sued for misappropriation of identity. The trial court granted the defendants a special motion that they asked for, finding that the action arose from a protected activity because the television show concerned the public interest, and Greenstein had consented to the use of his persona in this program. And the District Court of Appeals affirmed the trial court's decision. So, the plaintiff claimed misappropriation, and the definition of misappropriation is the intentional, illegal use of the property or funds of another person for one's own use or other unauthorized purpose. This is a little photo of the Family Jewels show, and you can see A&E here on the bottom. The background of this case. Greenstein was hired by Greif Company. He was hired by Leslie Greif to film a segment of the documentary-style 30-minute television show following Simmons when he made an appearance in New Orleans for Mardi Gras. The defendants claim that he signed a release for consent to be on the show, but Greenstein denied this claim. Greenstein did appear several times on camera while acting as an escort for Simmons and his entourage. He also prepared a sign to be held up all times while filming as part of his production duties that said that any people or person in the vicinity or by being in the vicinity consent to being recorded and filmed. And a year after this filming, he declined another release that the Greif Company came up and asked him to sign. He denied it and said that he would try to negotiate a deal to be compensated, and he was not compensated. And so when A&E broadcast the episode, he sued for misappropriation of identity, and the defendants filed a special motion to strike the complaint. The trial court granted the defendants this special motion. The court found that the action arose, again I already stated this, from a protected activity because the television show concerned the public interest and Greenstein had consented to the use of his persona in the program. The reason that the court found that the action arose from a protected activity because the television show concerned the public interest is because Simmons is a celebrity, and this show was based on his celebrity life, and this was the public interest as the court concerned. And so the plaintiff appealed the trial court's decision. The District Court of Appeals affirmed the trial court's decision. Justice Lori D. Zellin, joined by presiding Justice Dennis M. Perlis and Justice Fred Woods, was joined by them in her opinion. Justice Zellin stated that Simmons was a public figure, and this was an issue of public interest. The television show was an issue of public interest. Zellin also stated that it didn't matter that it was a reality-based series compared to a traditional news program. And Greenstein had knowingly and willingly involved himself in the television program by acting as an escort and by filming. And for misappropriation law, consent does not have to be in writing. The sign that Zellin held was also a reason that Zellin stated. The sign that he displayed said that anyone in the vicinity consented to this filming and recording, and so that sign was the individual's presence, Zellin stated, was enough consent. Greenstein also wore a microphone during filming, and he reviewed footage after being filmed. And so Zellin said this was evidence as to his consent. Do you agree with Zellin and the other justices? I wanted to stop here and ask a question. Do you agree with Justice Zellin and her other justice, the other presiding justice, Dennis Imperlis, and Justice Fred Woods, in their opinion that he was involved in this television show with a public figure, and that was enough consent, and the sign he was holding that people in the vicinity could be filmed, was that enough consent for Greenstein to be recorded and broadcast? Greenstein stated that this was definitely not enough evidence of consent and that he should have signed a written consent form that he never did, and obviously the defendant said that he did but could not produce this. But the judge ruled that it was enough evidence based on his involvement and the sign that he did consent to this. The significance of this case was that the Greif Company and A&E, their First Amendment rights to film and were strengthened, while Greenstein's were not as much. And the court ruled that this was a SLAPP lawsuit, a strategic lawsuit against public participation, and the court dismissed this lawsuit as a SLAPP because California has an anti-SLAPP statute, and this was tried in California. And the court saw this as Greenstein limiting First Amendment rights to production companies into television networks in kind of a strategic way to limit what they can broadcast and what they have to do to get consent. And that's the way the court saw this and struck it down and said, no, it was consent enough, your involvement, and the fact that you held up this sign, so you should not have to have written consent, and you shouldn't be compensated for your efforts, which was really what I believe that Greenstein was after, compensation. And so here are my works cited. I'm going to maximize this here if I can, and so you can see them. There we go. To conclude, this case was based on the plaintiff suing for misappropriation based on his appearance in a series, a TV series, and he was a producer, acting as a producer type. He sued for misappropriation. The trial court in 2007 stated that they granted the defendants a special motion and said that this was not an issue of consent because he did already consent. And in 2009, the Court of Appeals in California affirmed the trial court's decision, which was what this case was about in Greenstein v. Greif Co, 2009, tried in the California Appellate Court. Thank you guys for listening. I'm excited to hear about your case and about your feedback on if you think the court and the justices made the right decision and if you agreed on their opinion. And I also think it's cool we talked about SLAPP, which was brought up a little bit last week. So I want to hear a little more about SLAPP and what you guys think about California's anti-SLAPP laws. So thank you all for listening. Have a great weekend.